This episode is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is the #1 tool for all podcasters. You can record high-fidelity audio between remote locations and get studio-quality sound. Go to Zencastr.com and use coupon code THATENTERTAINS for 20% off for 3 months or 20% off an annual plan.
This is a That's Entertainment podcast.
Awesome.
Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. Awesome. That was awesome. You guys are awesome.
No,
you're awesome. You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything's Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. And in these next 2 episodes, there are going to be some special episodes that we are doing to cover the 2018 Keystone Comic Con here in Philadelphia, the first ever here. And I am also forcing my my longtime live co-host, Mr. Mike DeAngelo, to join me.
Thumbs up for Stockholm Syndrome.
Which you unfortunately did not have a chance to attend Comic-Con.
No, I had that colonoscopy procedure that left me a little weary over the weekend.
Yeah. Both in the wallet and in the pants.
Yeah, and so my butt was okay. It was the the anesthesia had like a hold on me. So like we went to the gym on Saturday morning and like it was the weakest I've ever felt in a long time. Yeah. And then we went to like the store right after and we got into like a little happening because like I could barely hold up like a case of water.
Oh wow, that's nuts.
It was bad. So,
but healthy. So that's
Came
what
back.
matters.
No cancer, nothing like that. So
that's
a win.
Yeah, it's a win at the end of the day, or the end of the weekend, or whatever.
All that time spending, fucking cancer.
Did you? Did they give you the results like right away, or did you have to wait?
So they had like a set of pictures where he was like, I did this, and every doctor who I've seen who has like had like some kind of grasp of like what cancer looks like, they know right away. But like he did a biopsy anyway, so he did like his. I'm going to look at it. This looks like it's not cancerous, but I'm still going to biopsy it. So then they confirmed it. Actually, like it only took them the weekend, and then they told me on Monday.
Oh, nice. So the 2 reasons that we're doing this kind of set up than my normal like, hey, let me just cut an intro by myself is A, me and you kind of have another project that now that we have this nice portable recorder, we might be able to actually do.
Which one?
The film-related one that I don't want to give the name away for.
I wasn't sure if we were talking that Game of Thrones.
There's so many different projects. Game of Thrones, I don't know.
You keep talking about it and then stop talking about it. I just want you to get to the end of season 3, man.
Yeah, I need to get back. But see, I don't think I have HBO anymore, so that's my issue. It's harder for me to watch it now.
Yeah.
Legally at least, which I have not watched it illegally. I want that on the record. It's always been legally that I watched it.
They'd be all about it if you did, though. I feel like.
Yeah. But that, and also we kind of did a similar setup for when you did your first year at Wizard World.
Yeah, true.
Where I kind of talked to you a little bit about it as a whole episode. So we're not gonna. This is gonna be a quick-ish intro. So we're breaking this down into 2 episodes. Episode 1 will feature my interview that I did with Mega Ran coming up later today. And also just kind of what happened day 1 of the con. And then the next episode will be covering my Sandy King Carpenter interview that I did. And then also day 3 for the con. I didn't go to day 2. I had prior plans for that. So I missed. That was, from what I understand, the busiest day of the 3. Saturday, yeah. I ran into Nick Waskey on day 3, which we can talk about then. But we chatted about the con then. Friday was day 1 and it was weird because I don't know that I've not been to a con that early ever. I think like what time does Friday's Wizard World open?
Wizard World on Friday opens kind of late.
Is it noon or is it a little bit early?
3 o'clock, something like that, because I don't think they want to open it too early because they know that kids are getting out. But for whatever reason, so Thursdays I think is the day.
Thursday, I think, opens late, like at 3 o'clock, like that.
I wonder if they
Friday, because I was there between 12 and 1 on this year, because our panel started at Was it 3 or 1:30? Our panel was either 1:30 to 2:30 or 3:30 to 4:30.
Yeah, you're right. I think maybe it was like 10 o'clock on Friday. Maybe it was Thursday that started kind of late because they were worried about the kids.
And that makes sense because it's day one of the con and whatnot. So this one opened at noon, and it was the only thing that was strange to me was that it seemed really dead compared to Wizard World.
And we had kind of talked about that beforehand. Like, are people going to be willing to go to another Comic-Con when they know the big one already has come through? And that doesn't necessarily mean that this one wouldn't be big, but like in their minds, like it's their first year.
Well, and not only that, first year is a big thing with that mindset, but also more so than I think Wizard World just happening. It's in less than a month. I think in 2 or 3 weeks from now.
Is New York Comic Con?
New York Comic Con put on by the same people who ran Keystone, ReedPOP. So that was, I think, a concern that they realized almost right away because they scheduled 2019 for August, the end of August, I think.
And it looks like now 2019 has been scheduled for Wizard World as well. It looks like it's going to be June 13th through the 16th.
Yes. Which is about the same time, right? Or was
Well, I think this year it was May. It was the end of May,
yeah,
which was kind of like, it came out of left field. It was like, really? Like, are we prepared to like do it that quick and everything? It actually helps that it's back in June because that gives us a little bit more time to get our product together and everything like that.
And when I used to go to Wizard World years and years ago, it always was in May, like mid to, and it slowly creeped into June.
I wonder if they just had more shows and it made more sense to kind of push it out so that they could get over here.
It is because I think they only do the Pennsylvania. Philly is, I think, the only Pennsylvania show they do. Is there a Wizard World Pittsburgh? I don't think so because there's one in Ohio.
I don't believe so. I'll look. I'm on the
site. I don't
site.
think so because I think there's one in Philly. Obviously, I know there's one in Philly, and then there's one in I think Columbus, Ohio. So Pittsburgh's like in between both those. So I don't think they do a Pittsburgh one. But
unless they're doing a Pittsburgh one for their Ghostbusters Fan Fest the week before.
Ooh.
So you have on their site Austin, Madison, New Orleans, blah, 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 and then there's just Ghostbusters Fan Fest.
Well, they will put on like a random. They did a Philadelphia.
There was a horror thing, right? But it was the same weekend.
Oh, yeah, it was the same weekend.
This is a separate weekend all on its own.
Interesting.
So that's kind of, it's weird.
Anyway, we'll talk about Wizard World next year. Keystone was, it was, I liked that it was really easy to get into. I mean, I got there right at noon.
As far as like the breadth of the show, like, you know how big like the room was for Wizard World Comic Con? Was it about the same size?
Yeah, so I think they used the same, as far as show floor is concerned, they used, I think, the same amount of space.
Okay.
It seemed like it was the same amount of space, but there was a lot of open space. Especially when you first walked in, there was a lot of open space that looks like it could have been utilized better. My biggest complaint, I guess I have 2 complaints really. One, which is very minor, but it's similar to the PAX Unplugged complaint I had last year, which is where it didn't seem like they utilized a lot of local talent for panels and stuff. Now, I know for a fact that PAX Unplugged did not do that last year.
And that was actually one of the complaints that they had, right? And I think they're trying to address it this year.
Yeah, and I don't know because I didn't apply for panels this year, and I don't know anyone else that. I don't think they've made any final decisions for panels yet. So I don't know if any of my local buddies got accepted or not. Now, Keystone could have had some local people doing panels. I'm not. I know more tabletop creators, and it's easier to find that information out with PAX Unplugged than it is really with people that are hosting this stuff at Comic-Con.
Well, this stuff, I mean, you're so many different kinds of fans.
Yes. But like I know like the kind of staples of Philly weren't there, like Noah with +2 comedy, the Armchairs and Wizards, Tim, I believe his name is.
And are they they are local to Philly?
No, well, I think Noah is technically Jersey.
I mean, Noah I know he's around here all the time, but I didn't know if Armchair Wizards was a traveling gig or not.
He's, I think, from Harrisburg. I've done some research.
And that's kind of a hike, so I could understand him not getting all the way out here.
Yeah, and that was, and we'll talk more about this day 3, but like during a feedback session, that was kind of like, this is the first year, so blah, blah, blah. Like it's harder to get people out here for the first year, and also we're so close to New York Comic Con, blah blah blah. There was a couple of mistakes made, again, it could have been that there were local talent there that I just didn't know about it, but and that's not even a major complaint because at least the stuff that they offered was all interesting. I had a hard time picking and choosing what panels I wanted to go to, and it's the only thing that sucks is a lot of the stuff that I wanted to see was on Saturday and I couldn't make it. And then the stuff that I was going to plan on seeing on Sunday, I ended up missing because I had to do some last minute cleanup stuff at home from the night before. So I missed, like, there's this interesting comics in the classroom panel that I really, really wanted to check out, but it was like at first thing in the morning at like 10 a.m. or something like that. So I missed that. But
did you? This is just me being curious. Like the description of that panel, was it supposed to be like using comics as like a form of education?
You know what?
Or
in the program guide, they had no descriptions, which is odd. Now that I think about it, like, it didn't even cross my mind. I guess I saw a description of it in the app or maybe online, but I don't even know what the description was. I just that heading got me.
Okay.
But that is, if Keystone is listening, definitely in your program guide, a suggestion would be to put the description of each panel in there.
Yeah, even if it's just like a sentence.
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful for people who don't check the website, who don't check the app. The app was kind of new. Them.
Well, I mean, I'm imagining a lot of this was brand new because they were trying to figure out, like, are there going to be a lot of... Well, I mean, they had to have known that there was going to be a lot of people, but maybe when they got the brochures made, you still got to figure they make that late because they don't know what panels are going to be in place and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the final panel decision is usually about a month out. They probably get it printed about two weeks ahead of time. But, like, for instance, they had some stuff in there about Greg Capullo, illustrator for DC Comics, did the New 52 run of Batman, did Dark Knight's Metal. Great. He's my favorite illustrator from DC right now.
He's not the one that did full frontal Batman nudity recently, is he?
I don't think he was on Batman Damned. Dude, yeah.
I'm sorry, what was it? Batman's Dong?
I have yet to read that issue, but I'm surprised, like, the guy who reviewed it for That's Entertainment, like, I only
Who's
knew
that,
about
Ash?
it. No, Josh from Victims and Villains.
Okay.
Josh Berkey. He's reviewing Batman Damned, and I'm surprised he didn't say anything about it, like, in our Slack channel, because
he was either really eager about it, or
well, it's because, like, on Twitter I see someone, like, posted the picture of it. I'm like, is that Batman's dick?
I haven't even seen it, but, like, IGN reported on it, and apparently it got so bad that they've already removed it. So I don't know, like...
Oh, really? They removed it?
So I don't know, like... I mean, obviously the original comics that people have in hand, it's not removed from that, but I guess digitally, like, if you have the app, you don't see it on there anymore.
That's a bold move to, like... I mean, so this is their black label. I think it's called DC Black or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's for the
It's bold either way, I think, now, because either you show dick or you cuck Batman.
Well, dude, and if I'm looking at now, the picture I saw was literally just like that area, so it was hard to judge. But, like, I think he's hung.
Well, wouldn't it be weird if
it was a micro dick?
Yeah. That's why Batman's angry. It's because he's got a little micro penis and he's compensating.
I feel like if this is a weird discussion, but I feel like in the world of superhero package size, I feel like that, like, he should be well hung, Batman. But I feel like,
I don't know. I mean, wind resistance gets taken into play.
I feel like the one that would be tiny would be Superman. I don't know why. It's just in my head. It's funny that the Man of Steel, the guy who's literally like a god, is he's just reduced to nothing down.
This is the intro that's for Mega Ran, right? Sorry, bud.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Rand. Anyway, so day one was fun. I ended up, I when I first got there, I found a table and I had to do some prep for my day. I had 2 interviews with Mega Ran and Sandy King, and then I had my a couple panels. No, one panel. I had a John Barrowman panel that I was going to, that I was kind of prepping everything for. And
that was day 2 or day 1?
This is day 1. Day 2, I wasn't there. That was Saturday. So day 1, when I first got there, I just kind of prepped because there was not a lot of traffic that day. When you I took the train down, so you get into Jefferson and you get up to the stairs and to where Hard Rock Cafe is, and that's like, you never leave that building. It was great because, like, it was like to catch my train.
Yep.
I had to catch a 5:06 on day 1 to get home in time for my son had movie night at his school, and that was started at 6:30. So I had to get this 5:06 train. I left the panel at 4:59 and was able to catch the train still.
Yeah, I like that setup. We've always talked about, like, maybe doing the train, like, on the days that we don't have to bring stock, and we just get nervous about it. It's the same reason we don't take, like, an Uber when we're in Florida and going to, like, universal
It's
instead of
if now on a Thursday, Friday, it's if you miss a train there, at least it's not a huge deal because they run about
every 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, every 15, 20 minutes. The way home, still kind of around rush hour, but if you miss like the 5:15 doesn't go to Levittown, and it was just late getting into where it did get into. So anyway, so day one for me was a lot of prep, just walking around, kind of judging.
How was the Barrowman?
So the Barrowman panel, on Saturday he had his solo panel.
Oh, okay.
Fridays was a Accursion spotlight. So he's doing this new comic with Webtoon, who sponsored the whole. They were like the con sponsor.
Okay.
They're an app where you can read comics for free, and they're digital comics made for digital reading.
Okay.
And so they scroll vertically.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I've only read one or two comics on it. I haven't read this one yet because that one released the night before day one on September 13th.
And this was a comic that he's developed, or
so this is interesting too. So this comic book is the first and maybe only comic I've ever saw that says Accursion starring John Barrowman. So now any writing project he does, if I gathered from the panel correctly, typically him and his sister Carol, they get in a room and they talk it out for however long, and then once they have the outline done, basically she goes off and actually writes it.
Okay.
So he helps with the story and helps with like the blueprint of it, and then she actually gets the words down. Same thing with this, but the main character, I believe his name is Charlie. He's based off of what John Barrowman looks like. So like if you look at
that's what they mean by starring.
Yes. So and apparently it's the first comic that Webtoon is doing that has like music attached to it as you scroll through, like music will play.
That's pretty cool.
I have to jump into it. I think I'm going to read it after I write my article on this panel, so that I can just kind of review that issue.
I've seen like there's people who like I've interviewed who've done like the ebooks and everything, who've tried things like that, and it's really hard when you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
And they'll do like almost interactive books and everything, but like it's hard to do it without like an organized platform.
Yeah.
If you're doing a one-off book, it's almost impossible to do the second one and have it feel the same.
And Webtoon is, I don't know if they're owned by or in a partnership with Legendary Comics, or they're with Legendary, which is...
Well, you figure you got to evolve if you're fighting against DC, Marvel, and stuff like that.
And Webtoon's mindset is that comics are going digital. Like their app is a way for people to get into comics again because they're free and they're digital. They don't make you have to go. And I get that. I still prefer to hold a paper comic because I read a lot of digital to review.
So these are free, you said?
Yeah, you can download the Webtoon app. It's called Webtoon, the app.
How do they make their money? Is it advertisements or?
I don't know. That question was asked at the panel, and I did not take the exact note on that. But basically, some big company out in China, I believe, or Asia somewhere, maybe Korea, owns Webtoon, and like they just have money to burn.
Okay.
Now, because like John Barrowman's getting paid, Carol Barrowman's getting paid, like everyone's getting paid to do this comic.
I wonder if it's like a temporary, like it's free so that we can build up our
now
viewers
they also have a partnership, or I think that they have a partnership with Legendary. So there's also like some of their stuff I think is getting turned into a TV show or something. So there's the hope that this gets optioned into a TV show if the comic's well received. And it's a pretty cool concept. It's kind of like a modern day outlook on fantasy.
Okay.
So it's kind of like what you did with Tellest, but with superheroes, is what they're doing with fantasy in modern day, though. Okay. If that makes sense. I don't know. I probably did not explain it correctly.
So it's like an urban fantasy.
Yeah.
So a little bit less like, from what I'm gathering, it's a little bit less people from our time going into a side world where it's more fantasy. We're bringing fantasy into
exactly.
Kind of like Bright without being futuristic.
And definitely not as, from what I can tell based off the previews and the trailer that I watched, but not as fantasy. Like I don't think there's orcs, and maybe there is, but not that heavy. Fantasy. Still
like a
very
light fantasy.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I'll have, by the time you're listening to this, that article should be posted, so you can go on to thatentertains.com and find my Accursion Spotlight article to read more about it, and I'll hopefully have a review up of the first issue, probably after when this goes out. But we'll be back on the other end. We're gonna cut to my interview with Mega Ran. For those that don't know, Mega Ran is he's no longer Philly based, but Mega Ran was born and raised in Philadelphia. And I didn't know he was, and we didn't talk about it in the interview, but I looked up some information. This is the most I've ever prepped for interviews with these two, with Mega Ran and Sandy King. And he's 41 years old, which is he looks great.
How long has he been doing Mega Ran stuff? Because he was a different artist before he was Mega Ran, right?
Yes. Random, I believe.
So he's been Mega Ran for how long, you think?
Since the early 2000s.
So I mean, he really should be Mega Ran X at this point.
And we talk about Mega Man, we talk about Final Fantasy, we talk about wrestling and everything that's influenced him to do this nerdcore hip hop. And it was a great conversation. It's a guy who I've wanted to talk to pretty much since I started Everything Is Awesome, because I knew he was a Philly guy. He does the intro that Party of One podcast uses, Infinite Lives, with Mega Ran featuring the D&D Sluggers. So I'm a big fan of his, and he has a new song, Brett's Lamont. Am I saying that right? Lamont?
I don't even know who.
Bret Hart. It's one of those songs that are I suck at the English language. Lament, I believe.
What is it? Lament.
Lament. Yes, Lament. Yeah. Brett's Lament.
So the sadness.
Sadness. Yes, it's a very good heel turn.
I wrote that word today.
Ooh, it's a very good song that's about wrestling, and it's about the Attitude Era, and it's about Bret Hart turning heel, and it's also more about how Mega Ran feels in this current day hip hop game, kind of is the undertone. It's a really good song. That's actually posted. The song is currently posted on thatentertains.com. You can scroll down to it's probably midway through the latest news post that we posted, and we'll also have it, probably a link to it in the show notes here. So without further ado, we're back on the other end. Here's my interview with Mega Ran, former Philadelphia local artist.
Whoop.
All right, so I actually I was introduced to you from, I have a friend that does this podcast called Party of One podcast.
Oh wow! Okay.
2-player RPG, and he uses Infinite Lives.
Nice.
So and that was my introduction into your world.
Cool.
So love it. That's one of my favorites.
Thank you. One of my favorites too.
But I like to start at origin points. You being from the Philadelphia area, kind of a good landscape for the hip hop scene, I think.
Definitely.
So what, where's your origin point? What leads you into music?
Wow, I think just growing up in Philadelphia with such a rich musical background and history around me, music always being present in the home. When I was young, I sang on the choir. I was around a bunch of guys who were really into hip hop, so that's what later got me into hip hop. But coming from soul music and things like that, we would attempt to kind of emulate that and put that into our hip hop tracks. Okay. Then huge fan of video games as well, and just one day a bunch of buddies, we all just decided to make a rap song. Let's just write a song. It was like the mid '90s when I thought hip hop was in like a second golden age. Yeah. So there was a lot of great stuff happening. The Wu-Tang, Snoop Dogg, a lot of the guys who are icons now were just getting started. So it was a great time, and I just wanted to be a part of that. So started writing some songs, and some of my friends kept working with me, but then some of them just eventually would stop writing songs, and they'd be like, "Hey man, your songs are really good. You should keep going." And that's what encouraged me to just keep going. And later we got into freestyle rapping and going to open mics and performing live and learning how to just kind of translate the recorded experience to a live moment. And yeah, I think that's how it started, just getting caught up in the rush of all the cool stuff that was happening in music at the time,
So now in the 90s, I was mid 90s, I was in my teens. Okay. So I didn't really go out to and I'm from the suburbs, so I didn't really come down to the city for many events. But I now know the city to be in a creative boom when it comes to any creative art, podcasting, theater, improv, all that, and music as well. How was it in the 90s?
It was different, man. I will say, I say this all the time, kind of half jokingly, that if the city was the way it is now, I would have never moved. You know, I moved in the early 2000s because I felt stagnant. You know, I didn't feel the creative boom. I didn't feel the creative freedom to be who I fully was. You know, I think that people were a little more closed-minded back then, and the city was a little colder in general. You know what I mean? It was just I don't know. It was I hate to say it. It was kind of like a follow the leader mentality. Like we kind of did what New York was doing. Or sounded like New York, or worked 2 or 3 steps behind whatever New York was working on. And I felt myself kind of stuck, you know. When I tried new things, people would meet it with, you know, really harsh criticism or just like not understanding it, being like, oh man, you can't do that, you know. So when I was trying to do like nerdy hip hop and things like that, I don't think it was fully embraced or appreciated. And then when I see the city and what it's going through now, I see that there's nerdy, geeky stuff everywhere in Philadelphia. And, like, I'm so excited about it, but I'm like, man, I really wish that was going on when I was young, you know. It wouldn't have discouraged me, you know, at the time. And I was like, I still want to do what I want to do, but I felt like creatively I was in a rut, which is what made me move to Arizona.
And is Arizona, or at the time at least, was Arizona, like, more forward-thinking when it came to nerdcore?
Maybe. I guess so, but it was more like a barren land. I mean, it's a desert, so it's like, you know, so creatively, I feel like it was more of a land that was wide open and free, you know, and so therefore they were more receptive to anything that was different. You know, hey, do what you do, because of it being such a transplant area. So many people in Arizona have come from other places. So I think because of that, there was a wide open sense of, hey, do what you want. It's the new Wild West, the new frontier. Like, be who you are, because, you know, we'd love it anyway. And I feel like that's what was happening out there. And so it wasn't that they were more creative or more free. It was just more space to be creative.
That's
and I
interesting.
didn't feel that in Philadelphia.
Yeah, because I was thinking, like, when I saw that you had, in the mid-2000s, moved there, I was like, that's like, you think it would be New York or L.A., and now that you bring up, like, the transport of that, that's kind of like Atlanta, too. Is there a reason, like, there's a couple different cities, Atlanta, Phoenix area. Why Arizona versus another transport city?
Well, it was cheaper than L.A. for me. That was honestly what it was. And I'm close enough to L.A. where I can get there very quickly. I can get to Vegas really quickly. I can get a lot of places from there. And it really just came down to cost of living. And at the time, I was still teaching. So I was offered a pretty good teaching job. So I was making music on the side, but I was teaching. And I just wanted a new challenge. You know, it's like Street Fighter 2. I don't know if how familiar you are with it. But Ryu's ending is, you know, he doesn't even stay for the ceremony to win the cup or whatever. It's like, where'd he go? Where is he? You know where he went? He's off to the next challenge. You know, he's just walking down the road like, whatever, man. I'm on to the next fight. And then he's dragon punching rocks. You know, like, that was me. I went to the desert to dragon punch a cactus.
Now, you used to be a teacher. You're retired from that now.
Yes.
Did you teach in the city proper?
I did.
So I have a fiance who is a teacher in the
Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia. So
I pray for her.
Yeah. Well, she's an elementary school teacher. So
still,
it's rough, but she loves her kids. That's what's important.
Good.
There seem to be always a good crop of kids. But what's the difference? I feel like Philly teaching or Philly school has got to be rougher than almost any other area. How is it going to Arizona, Phoenix?
Well, I mean, you add in all the challenges. You keep all the challenges from Philadelphia school, and then you add in a possible language barrier. You know, when you go to Arizona, where 30% of my kids are bilingual, or maybe come up in a home that doesn't speak English primarily. So you add in that extra layer of you know, a new hurdle. And I think it's more challenging than Philly even. You know, you're dealing with behavior stuff. That's normal. I taught middle school, so we had all the behavior issues. But, you know, adding in, you know, a language barrier made it so rough for me. And but I welcome the challenge. And it was something that made me a better teacher and more patient to deal with kids who maybe couldn't understand what I was doing or saying, you know. And I would get other students to help me and translate. And, you know, it made me more resourceful than I already was. And I think which all of it made me a better performer.
Yeah.
Being able to think on the fly and move quickly is something that teaching definitely gave me.
Have you ever taken a improv course or anything? Because that's something a lot of creators I've talked to, wrestlers, I guess wrestlers mainly, they've all like said, improv is like, it's a great tool to help you think on your feet.
Yes, it is. I've done a couple of improv classes and I've really enjoyed them. So I want to do more actually because I do see the importance of that, especially in wrestling, of course, and theater, anything where you're performing for people. It's so important to be able to think on the fly, to be funny on the fly, to roll with the punches, to make something great out of nothing.
Yeah.
So when I do improv, I always pick up something new.
Video games, wrestling have played a big a part of your at least professional life now. If not, I'm sure as a kid, personal life. So I have to ask, I'm assuming that Mega Man is one of your favorite franchises, if not favorite.
That would be correct.
So if I have two franchises I want to talk about. Mega Man first. Pick one. What's your favorite?
Ooh, this changes every time I'm asked this question. Okay, today I'm gonna say X.
Okay.
I'm usually a classic guy, but lately the X collection just came out.
Okay.
So I've been running through the X games a lot, and X1 is still my favorite.
Okay. Now, I'm more of a Final Fantasy guy. I played Mega Man a little bit as a kid, but I'm more of a Final Fantasy guy. Big news from Nintendo. I saw you tweet about it today. So what's your favorite Final Fantasy?
Well, it's got to be 7.
Okay.
But when I go back, though, 6 or 3 is my favorite.
Okay.
I'm really excited about this news about these games coming out on Switch because I've been wanting to replay them, but I don't want to go chase down the old hardware.
Yeah.
So it's so good to be able to play them. But they were missing 6 and they're missing 8.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Final Fantasy 6. I'm from, I think, that generation that was right before 7. Like my friend's little brother is a 7 guy, and he was like maybe 5 years younger than us. So I'm a 6 guy, a 3 guy. That's, I mean, to the point where a friend and I wrote a script for a trilogy of movies from that. So, and I feel like that's had the Game Boy Advance remastered, and you can't. That's like $130 on eBay if you want it.
Super rare.
Yeah.
Oh man, maybe that's why they haven't done it because, well, I don't know if that would make any sense. To keep that game rare, like it's the only one that exists. I don't know, but 8. Someone said that 8's the only one that hasn't been remastered yet.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's why they didn't put 8 on there. They're planning something maybe.
Okay.
20-year anniversary is coming up of 8.
Okay.
Maybe they got something planned for a special 8 release. I'm excited to play 9 and 10 again, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I've kind of blew by them at the time. Like I played through them quickly, and I don't really remember a lot about them. I was at a time where college was starting for me. Like things were getting important in my life, so I couldn't really sit down with them like I could with 3 and 7,
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of a playthrough. I'm on Final Fantasy V remaster for GBA or whatever.
5 is good too.
It's one it's one of those Final Fantasies now is one of those games that I set to the side because I'm such in a creative mode right now. And then when I get like hampered down with too much of this, I'm like, all right, let me just take a break, grab my GBA, play some Final Fantasy V.
Yes.
I still have an affinity for 1. The original is hard, real hard.
Oh, it's so hard,
but good.
But it's really good. Mystic Quest also has a very special place in my heart.
That was when
First game I beat.
Yes, and that one is like, it's I guess just easy because like it's made for almost kids.
It's supposed to be like your first RPG experience.
And
it's great. The story's great. It's funny, and you get all the tools you need to basically to play the rest of the franchise. So it's a really good idea that they did that.
So we mentioned wrestling. You do a wrestling podcast, Matt Mania podcast.
I do.
So A, what got you into podcasting? And B, why wrestling for podcasting?
Man, this is probably the 4th or 5th time I've tried to do a podcast.
Okay.
I've quit every time.
It's not easy.
I did a talk show, kind of a hip-hop chat show with my DJ at the time. Probably in 2008, we started our first podcast show. Then I started moving and trying different things. And eventually I'd get too busy or the other person would get too busy, and we just didn't have the time to commit to it, so we stopped. So this one, I used to just do it sparingly because I really watch a lot of wrestling. I love to talk about wrestling, even if there's no one else to talk about it with. So that's really what it was. Like, I'm going to just talk to myself about wrestling for 40 minutes. And then it kind of became like a multi-headed beast. I had a couple guys join the podcast, Teak Hall, the Neo X, Rock Knowledge. So now we have a 4-person crew, and we bring guests in, and we go like live on site to events. And now I'm able to combine it with all the other things I love, with the hip-hop, even with gaming, and take the podcast out on the road. Yeah, that's neat. Which is really fun. So now when there's a big wrestling event that I'm traveling to, I try to make it a work trip. Yeah. So now I'm like, hey, can I also hold a podcast there? Like, I should have done one here. I should have asked, but I didn't ask. So like things like that. So I try to mix the work and play as best I can. And it's been really fun, man. And we just hit our 100th episode. That's all. I'm really excited about that. Like, that just to me was a mark that I never thought I'd hit. You know what I mean? It took us, it took like 4 years to get there. Like, I started this thing so long ago.
Well, fun fact, podcasting, it's like 50% of the people that start them don't get to episode 10, and 50% of those people that do get to 10 maybe get to 100. So that's an achievement.
Wow, that feels really good. That makes me feel even better about it. I'm so proud of us just being able to stick with it. And I think the key to that was bringing in a couple other guys who were just as passionate about it, or maybe more passionate sometimes, where they're like, dude, no, we got to talk about this. Did you see what just happened on New Japan? Like, we got to get together. And that's really what it was. It was like, it's a moment for an hour a week where I can get together with friends and talk wrestling. And we need that. I think that's so yeah, it's not work when you're having fun.
Exactly. And you need that for podcasting. You need to have it be fun, otherwise it feels like work. Because if you're doing everything, editing, producing, all that, it's just so much work. It's so much.
So much.
And one last question before I let you go. You on your website have this great little section about people who want to use your music. And as long as they buy it and I guess talk to you for certain things, they can use it. You don't see many creators giving back in that way. Like, how important when you got to be able to be a performer full time, was that like super? Like, how important was that to helping other people, like, kind of pave the path for them?
Oh man, absolutely. When I started this, there was almost no path ahead of me. There was no path to follow, and so I know that I got my start, and I make no bones about it, from someone else's, intellectual property, through Mega Man, and being able to remix and flip and rework Mega Man tunes and rap over them. And Capcom could have easily shut me down. Yeah. They could have said, no more, you're gone. And I would have been off the internet before I got started. But they didn't. They were nice enough to allow me to utilize their tunes, to license me and things like that. And I want to be able to take that and give back to someone else. What would I look like to yell at somebody for using my tunes illegally or without permission? So I just want to make it absolutely clear, like, hey, you are free to use any of my tunes for whatever, Also bearing in mind that some of them have samples from other people, so you got to sometimes talk to those folks. But I what would I look like? I just feel like the very least I can do is to give that back to someone else. To be like, hey, if you need music to play in the background of your streams or anything like that, on your podcast, bumpers, whatever, I'm honored. Just tell people where you got it from, and that's it, really. You know, and it's like, to me, it's nothing. It's like literally the least I could do. Yeah. It's like, no, you don't have to. I can't. I know folks are greedy about that stuff, and I've had situations where I've tried to use someone's music and then they've, come down on me. So I didn't want that feeling to ever come to another creative. We're all trying to create something to make this world a better place. Yeah. So if I can help you a little bit with that little stepping stone with some cool tunes in the background, then I'm honored and happy to help.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly nice, because in the world, especially 2018, where it's full of creators who are trying to be on the top on their own. They're looking out for number one. Yep. It's nice to see someone who's at number one helping the little.
No, I'm not number one.
You're number one in our hearts.
I'm number something. I don't know, but thank you.
And you did just release Heel Turn.
Yeah.
Heel. So
the Brett's Lament track is out now. We use some auto tune. We have fun with that. It's a track that I think if you understand wrestling, you know where I'm coming from. But it's just, it takes me back to a time in wrestling where things began to shift.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then in the mid '90s or so, the Attitude Era comes about. Bret Hart, who's the grizzled veteran who's been there for a long time, who's been the good guy. All of a sudden, good guys aren't in anymore. You know, and it's like, well, now you got to make that turn. And it's like, he didn't really turn. He just continued to do what he was doing.
Yeah.
But yet being himself wasn't, pleasing to the fans.
It wasn't cool. It wasn't
cool.
Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, it wasn't cool. He wasn't crotch chopping. He wasn't cussing, So it's like, oh, you're not cool because you're not doing the heel stuff. So in essence, he turned heel. And so that I thought was a really fascinating moment. We think about that Bret Hart and Stone Cold match, and WrestleMania 13 is probably the best match, one of the best matches of all time.
Yeah.
Where the double turn happens, where Bret turns heel and Stone Cold turns face by passing out and not tapping out to the sharpshooter. Such great writing, and I was like, man, if I can just try to encapsulate that for 2 minutes in a rap song,
it was
that's all I was trying to do.
Where are your thoughts on wrestling, current day wrestling? Because the '90s, like I don't think it gets better than that Attitude Era.
Oh man, one thing that I think made it so great is, man, those crowds were so hot.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch them, I mean, when that glass breaks for Stone Cold, the place erupts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't get those type of reactions anymore. Like, you just feel the goosebumps. You're like, oh my God, they're so into it. There's a million signs people are holding up. Like, people are just going crazy. So nowadays, though, the wrestling is, I think, better than ever. Like, we have in-ring talent at a higher level than it's ever been.
Yeah,
there are great wrestlers everywhere in every federation, everywhere.
And there seems to be options. Like there's indie is big. Like, you can make a living. Cody Rhodes makes a living now, not with the WWE and not with a major company.
It used to be, if you were, that was the only game in town.
Yeah.
And now I think it's just like music, where eventually it opens up to the indies, with All In happening and going so well. Hopefully that'll inspire other indies to be like, man, we can do this. We can do pay-per-view. We can bring people in, and we can have a really good show, and, make a living. And I think that's most important. And that's what we learn with podcasting and independent music. Like, wow, now we can do this. We don't need some major podcast network to make something happen for us. Like, we could just do it and reach the people you want to reach. And those people will hopefully speak with their wallet and their clicks and downloads. And it's a great time, man. It's the greatest time to be a creative.
I think so, too.
And maybe the greatest time to be a wrestler as well, because it's like you have options, like you said.
Before I let you go, for real this time, Super Bowl 52. How did you celebrate?
EAGLES Eagles. Man, oh man, it hurt my heart not being in the city when that happened. But man, oh man, I was jumping up and down. I was outside of my house yelling Eagles chants all night long. I'm sure people got so tired of me. Oh, it was so. I still can't believe it. I'm just being honest. I really don't believe it happened.
I still get chills. I still get chills when I think about it.
You think we're the defending champions? Like, that's crazy. It's like, that's every time I see it. I see a banner. I see something. I see it on your hat, and I'm like, yo, that happened.
That happened.
Like, it was real.
And like, people are like so much kinder in this area, the greater Philadelphia area, suburbs too.
Sports does a lot for a town's morale, and it's so funny with this being so close to 9/11. I remember the Giants, I think, or the Patriots wound up going to Super Bowl not long after that.
Yeah.
And they were saying that helped morale in the city. And like, it's very true, man. Like, that stuff can change the entire landscape of the people, just from getting together for sports. Sports brings people together, man. And man, I still can't believe it. And it's awesome. And I hope that we can do it again.
I think we can. Mega Ran, thank you so much.
Dude, thank you. Anytime.
All right, and that was it's such a fun interview. So grateful of Mega Ran's time, because he was here. I felt bad using up all these people's, and it's only 2 people I interviewed, but using up their time, because like, they're there to sell. Like, he was there for day one and day one only. He was performing later at night, and he had a table set off to the side to sell merch. So like, I did feel kind of bad, like being like, hey, I mean, they invited me to do the interview, so I shouldn't feel that bad, but I'm so grateful of his time. Like I said, it's about 15-20 minutes. Spoiler alert, we didn't listen to the interview live, and I have to go through and edit it still, but yeah, he was a great dude, really kind with his time. and I can just tell from talking to him like he's just a kind soul.
I don't know why, but just like, I just vibed with him on like a wavelength.
I feel like in another life,
you guys would be best friends instead of you and me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kev.
I feel like in another life I'm his DJ Jazzy Jeff without the talent.
I think that's a very warm thought, Kev.
So, and really, I think we covered pretty much all my first day. It was really spent walking around. I checked out Alternate Dimensions, which is Waski's brother's shop. I checked that out.
And Alternate Dimensions is the one
it's in Newtown.
Yeah, that's the one. You've talked about that to me a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
It might have been Matt has been talking to me about it as well because he wanted to run some Quantum Quest in there at some point.
I think they do some stuff. I don't know. I've asked Waski about like running a show from there, and it's I got to talk to his brother. Is ultimately what I have to do. But they always go to these cons and whatnot. And Nick was there the night before to set up, and then he was there for day 3 because he couldn't get out of work the other 2 days to help break down. But like walked around the shop and you know what, I will say that I did not take I took for granted what was there that first day because I think I was more like judging the con that first day.
Yeah, it was more like, you were like, is this gonna be a long haul kind of thing? Is this gonna be?
I think your mic's off.
Damn it.
Go ahead.
But it's on now. I mean, you're going through it, and you're like, is this going to be, like a pertinent thing going forward?
Yeah.
Like, is this something that I want to put my time towards? And it sounded like yes.
I loved it, and I think that what they're doing is a good alternative to some of the stuff that Wizard World does. I think that they have a lot of things that they need to look at and kind of tweak and enhance to get to that level. And they even said, people asked, like, is this ever going to be a 4-day con? And they're like, well, that like it took 10-15 years for New York to do that. They have another con that they run that took Emerald City, I think took like 15 years.
Now you look at Wizard World, and I think Philly is like one of only like between 2 and 4 that are a 4-day con. Mm-hmm. So they might learn that Philly has a big Comic-Con presence.
There's a market for it for sure. I think the issue with them specifically is that they are in between Wizard World, which regardless of it being a different company, that's still a con. That's still like for people shelling out 3-day tickets like $150 or I don't know how much it is.
Well,
but
I'm just going to jump in because I know it. It's on my screen. So right now you can get the 4-day admission for Wizard World Philly for $60.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's super
and then
cheap.
There's a silver VIP package for $119.99.
Oh, that's right. I always think of the more expensive ones because I'm like, that's ridiculous.
But $60 for 4 days is fantastic.
That's a great price, and I think that's what more in line. I think it was like $50. I think for 3 days at Keystone. But you do have people shelling out all this money to whether it's for the pass or for photo ops or whatever. They're shelling out a lot of money. And Wizard World, I feel, is a lot more expensive. Now, I don't think the cons actually set the prices for autographs and stuff. I feel like that's the actual talent that does that.
Yeah, or their manager or something like that.
But I feel like it was like consistently triple digits at Wizard World to get photo ops because I did look at it just out of curiosity last year.
Yeah, there was a couple of them who were like 110
or more.
And that was individual. That wasn't even with a trio because I think like Sean Bean, Jason Momoa, and Natalie Dormer were like a little over $200, and so it was definitely a discount. But still, it was.
I want to say the most expensive one was around $100 to $110 at Keystone.
And was that Barrowman?
No, he was. Maybe. No, I don't even think he was triple. I think he was between 60 and 100.
Okay.
I think. And I mean, I looked at it all, and if I had extra resources, I would have gotten Barrowman's picture
because the big ones this year from memory. Because I had to pass on going. It was the Office group,
yes,
the True Blood group, and then Catherine Tate didn't end up going, right?
She was
dropped
there.
Out. Oh, okay.
I thought
she dropped out.
No, I think she was there because I saw her. Yeah, I saw her. Then usually, if they drop out, they take the signs down. And I saw her signs there all weekend.
Maybe she dropped out like one of the days or something like that.
Maybe.
No, I mean, yeah, it's definitely. I'm going to try and plan not to have a colonoscopy next year.
To me, I think it was. I preferred this con simply because Barrowman was there.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of the time, it really hinges on who's going to be there. Because a lot of people won't go unless there's people who either they really like to see or people who they haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and I think that's where Keystone's going to have an issue because they have for talent they're going to bring in and for people to come, the audience. Like you have Wizard World happening 2 months before then, and then you have New York Comic Con happening 2 months after. Now,
is it 2 months or is it even closer than that?
Probably.
I'm going to do some research for us.
For next year, it's mid-June to the end of August, and then probably mid-October. It's usually early, so it's not a full 2 months. It's probably about a month and a half between now and
So 2018's New York Comic Con is actually October 4th.
So that was 2 weeks in between this year's Keystone. And that's tough. That's tough to get people to come. Like no one from New York is going to come down for that.
No, probably not. But on the bright side, if you're having a hard time booking talent, they might be like, well, I'm going to be on the East Coast anyway.
Yes. So they are moving it back to about 2 to 3 weeks to like August 23rd ish, I think, for next year for 2019. So assuming that usually New York Comic Con happens that first weekend of October, because remember when we went and did our live show there, it was October 8th. So you figure you're going to have at least a full month and a half between those two cons, and then about a month, 2.5 months between Wizard World and Keystone.
Yeah.
So that might help. We'll see. I think they have a lot of potential to be another great con. If they keep their prices low and whatnot, I think they'll be great. And they just have to. I think it's going to hinge on talent. Getting the talent out here, and I like the talent that was there this year. Even though I'm not I don't like True Blood. I shouldn't say I don't like. I've never really watched True Blood. I was a fan of The Office, but I didn't see anything with that. They had a huge turnout for The Office this year.
Yeah, it looked like that, and I know True Blood. Like all the actors have gone on to do fantastic things. So,
well, and the whole reason I went to go see that panel was because I wanted to see Joe
Moyer.
No,
Steve.
That's Steve
Mangiello or whatever.
Mangiello, yeah.
Did you know that he's a big D&D player?
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to go see him. I wanted because he seems like a fun, and it was a really great panel. Like I know nothing about True Blood, and just like they were all really funny, and seeing them talk together was about the conversation for me, and I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
But more on that in the next episode. Where can people find you, Mike?
You can find me on Tellest.com, Tellest, and all the social medias that follow.
And make sure you check out Everything is Awesome on Real Awesome Pod at Twitter and Facebook, at Awesome Podcast on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter at ThatNerdyKev, which is where I do most of my tweeting and twatting. And of course, you can find us on the That's Entertainment Podcast Network at thatentertains.com/network and awesomepodcast.com for Everything is Awesome. I'm Kev.
I'm Mike.
We'll see you next time right here on awesomepodcast.com.
Whoop.
That's Entertainment Podcast Network. Entertainment and culture. Artist-owned, fan-supported.